quick look at the ear and its functions, right? Different parts of the ear and their functions, right? We're gonna start with the main functions of the ear. The main functions of the ear is hearing and balance, right? It's for hearing and balance. And the more you know the anatomy of the ear, the more you understand why hearing, why balance, right? So that's what I want to quickly go through, so that in the subsequent videos we get to look at hearing and balance, basically scrutinizing on it, right? Good. Let us begin. Right. Let's do this. Right. So let's start with the ear. The ear is divided into three main regions, right? There are three main regions of the ear, which is primarily your outer ear, your middle ear, and your inner ear, right? So what makes the outer ear? The outer ear is made up of the following. First, this cartilaginous part of your ear that we all know and see, it's visible to everybody, which is called the ear pinna. The ear pinna traps sound waves and directs the sound waves into the tympanic membrane. That is the first part of the outer ear. The second part is this canal over here, right? So this, let's zoom in on it a little bit. Yes, so that's the one basically when you put your pen or Q-tip just to try and get the earwax out, or when you're trying to scratch an itch. So the ear canal, or the auditory canal as we know it, transmits the sound waves to the middle ear, and it's also it has along it has some cerumen glands. Those are the glands that secrete earwax. And then right there at the end of the ear canal basically is your ear drum, aka your tympanic membrane. It transfers the sound waves to the bones of the middle ear, right? So those are the parts of your outer ear: the pinna, the auditory canal with its cerumen glands that secrete wax, and then the tympanic membrane, which vibrates basically when it gets to be when sound waves hit it. It vibrates and transfers those vibrations into the middle ear. Great. Now the middle ear. Now if you look at your anatomy, right here we have this bone. Yeah? This bone basically is your occipital bone. Basically that's where you find your inner and middle ear. So what makes up the middle ear? The middle ear is made up of your ossicles. These ossicles are the smallest bones of the ear, right? Now if you look at them, we're starting with the first one. The first one is called the malleus, and then the second one is called the incus, and then the last one is the stapes. Now all of these are known collectively as the ossicles, right? Great. Now the ossicles pick up those vibrations from the eardrum, right? And those vibrations from the eardrum are then transferred to the the oval window of the inner ear. The oval window is a membrane basically located in the inner ear, right? Good. So the function of the ossicles is to basically transmit those vibrations and concentrate the vibrations onto the oval window. So in concentrating these vibrations or sound into the oval window, they actually amplify sound. That's one of the questions that you're mostly going to be asked. How is sound amplified? So it is due to the large surface area of the tympanic membrane being larger than that of the malleus, the incus, and the stape. Basically the large surface area of the eardrum is larger than that of the ossicles and of the oval window, which concentrates the vibrations or the sound onto this oval window membrane that in turn amplifies sound. So those are your ossicles and their functions. And then attached to the middle ear is your eustachian tube. This tube right here connects basically your middle ear to the throat. Also, excess fluid from the middle ear basically can drain into the throat, basically maintaining balance on either side maintaining a balance of pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane. So basically, your eustachian tube is there basically to equalize pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane. And how does the eustachian tube do that? For example, let's give an example when you're scuba diving, right? When you're scuba diving, the deeper you dive, the higher the pressure becomes. So water exerts pressure on your tympanic membrane. So that means the pressure inside your auditory canal, this canal over here, the pressure on your auditory canal is higher than the pressure of the middle ear. So basically, what do you do to alleviate that pressure? You now must close your nose and blow air into blow and force air basically into the middle ear via the eustachian tube. So that basically does what? That basically equalizes pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane. Or for example, when you are flying, right? The higher you go, the less the pressure. We all know that from geography. So the pressure inside your auditory canal as you're flying, as you go up via altitude, the pressure inside your auditory canal becomes less than that of the middle ear, right? So the pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane is unequal. It needs to have an equilibrium. So how do you alleviate or decrease the pressure? Basically, you just yawn or swallow something to equalize the pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane. So that is your middle ear, made up of your eustachian tube and your ossicles, right? Those are the smallest bones in your body. And also the eustachian tube, when you have a middle ear infection, right? Sometimes it tends to basically swell. Your middle ear will swell, blocking or clogging the eustachian tube. If the eustachian tube is clogged, that means pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane is unequal, and there might be a fluid that increases the pressure in the middle ear. So basically, how do they alleviate that? They'll give you antibiotics, obviously, if you have an infection, and it's due to what? And it's due to bacterial infection, right? So they'll give you those antibiotics, but to alleviate the pressure right there by your tympanic membrane, they will put something called a grommet. Basically, small incision into your tympanic membrane that makes a passage for the fluid to drain out of the ear. So that's how they fix that problem. So that's your middle ear. Now let's move into the inner ear. The inner ear now, if you look at it, is this mostly consists of this purple structure over here, just turned cyan or blue. Hey, colors are a problem, right? So it's made up of the following parts. First is your three semicircular canals. Your three semicircular canals, basically at the bottom of each, we find the ampulla. At the bottom of each of these three semicircular canals, right? Now, the ampulla contains cristae. Cristae are receptors responsible for when you change direction and speed. They pick up a change in direction and speed, and then they will pick up that stimulus, send it out via the auditory nerve as basically your impulse, right? That is your three semicircular canals. These semicircular canals that are perpendicular to each other. Yes, let's look at them via this angle. They are perpendicular to each other. So at the bottom of each, you find the ampulla, and that's where you find the receptors known as cristae. And then right after that, right, let's zoom out. Great. Right after that, you will have at the bottom of your ampulla, right after the ampulla, you'll find your vestibule. Now the vestibule is divided into your sulcus and your utriculus. Inside your sulcus and your utriculus, that is where you find that those are parts somewhere here. That's where you find other receptors responsible for balance as well, right? Now those receptors are called your maculae. So your maculae are found inside your utriculus and sulcus, right? So these receptors, the maculae, they detect changes in the position of the head with respect to gravity, and then they turn that stimulus into an impulse and exits via the auditory nerve to your cerebellum. Remember, the cerebellum deals with these reflex actions together with when the cristae pick up a change in speed and direction. They send it via the auditory nerve, that's the auditory nerve, to the cerebellum. But sound, when it's picked up, it basically travels as an impulse to your cerebrum, right? Because you must remember it, so it gets stored there in your memory. Then when we move into the inner ear, there's this snail shell looking like appendage over here. Now this snail looking like appendage over here is known as your cochlea, and inside your cochlea, I usually say to my kids, let him cook as C-O-O-C. In the cochlea, C-O, you find the organ of Corti, the third receptor, responsible for what? Responsible for picking up the sound, sound vibrations. So once these vibrations enter via the oval window, they cause the perilymph and the endolymph to vibrate. Now sound is in the form of pressure waves, and it enters the cochlea, whereby it will be picked up in the middle chamber of the cochlea by your organ of Corti. The organ of Corti takes that stimulus, converts it into an impulse, and it will exit via the auditory nerve to the cerebrum, not the cerebellum, right? Good. And some of these pressure waves, they are in excess, right? And when they are in excess, it can cause echoes inside your inner ear. To relieve this, a membrane situated just below the oval window membrane is called a round window. Now the round window basically absorbs excess pressure waves from the inner ear and stops the vibrations from being echoed. So it alleviates these echoes and pressure waves. So that is the function of the oval window and that of the round window. Round window basically receives what? It receives and transmits vibration. That's the oval window, sorry. The oval window receives, which will be found connected to your stapes, receives and transmits vibrations from the middle ear to the inner ear. And all of those will go to your organ of Corti. The excess pressure waves are now absorbed via the oval window, so to stop echoing. So that is your ear in a nutshell. So these are parts of your ear. In the next video, we'll dive deep into hearing and balance.